I'm standing in a bank in Memphis, Tennessee, wearing my cobalt blue church dress with the matching hat still pinned to my hair, and the woman across the desk keeps asking if I'm sure I'm the right person. She's looked at my driver's license 3 times now, keeps glancing at the computer screen, then back at me, like she's waiting for me to confess to something. My hands are shaking so badly I have to clasp them in my lap. I haven't eaten in 2 days. The dress hangs looser than it did last month. I smell like the shelter I've been staying in, that mix of industrial cleaner and too many bodies in too small a space. She calls her manager over. They whisper. I hear numbers, big numbers. Numbers that don't make sense with the woman sitting across from them who looks like she might break apart if you touched her wrong. The manager sits down, introduces himself, asks me very carefully if I know a man named James Crawford. My uncle. My breath catches. I haven't heard his name spoken out loud in years. That's when everything changes. But I need to tell you how I got here. Because 3 weeks ago, I had a husband, an apartment, and a life that looked normal from the outside. Now, I have nothing but a suitcase. I packed myself and a prayer card with numbers written on the back in my mother's handwriting. 3 weeks ago, I was supposed to fly to Florida. My husband packed my suitcase for me, insisted on it, said he wanted to take care of me, make things easier because I'd been so stressed lately. That's what he always said when he wanted control of something, when he wanted to make sure things went his way. I'd learned over 23 years of marriage that it was easier to let him do what he wanted than to fight about it. Fighting made things worse. Fighting made him angry. Fighting made me crazy. Or at least that's what he told everyone. I remember standing in our apartment in that old brick building with the fire escape, watching him zip the suitcase closed. Winter light coming through the window, making everything look gray and cold. He was smiling, whistling even. Like he was happy I was going to visit my sister. Like he was a good husband seeing his wife off on a trip. If I listen to the people who know my name, if I follow what the church ladies would believe with just one glance, no one would think my husband capable of what he'd done. They saw the way he held doors open for me after service, the way he brought me sweet tea when I was tired, the way he called me baby in front of other people. They didn't see the way he'd started talking about me behind my back, telling people I was getting confused, forgetting things, losing my mind. They didn't know he'd contacted lawyers about having me declared incompetent. They didn't know he wanted me gone. At the airport, something made me stop. I can't explain it. Maybe it was God. Maybe it was my uncle somehow, reaching across almost a decade of death to shake me awake. I was standing in line for security, my carry-on rolling behind me, when this feeling washed over me. This cold certainty that something was wrong. I stepped out of line. People bumped into me, annoyed, rushing past to catch their flights. I didn't care. I opened the front pocket of my suitcase one more time just to check, and that's when I saw it. A Ziploc bag, white powder, labeled sugar in his handwriting. My hands started trembling so violently I nearly dropped it. The bag was heavy, maybe a pound or more. Too much to be an accident, too deliberate to be a mistake. I stared at his handwriting on that label, the same careful printing he used on grocery lists, on birthday cards, on notes left on the refrigerator. He'd touched this bag. He'd written on it. He'd placed it in my suitcase knowing exactly what it would do to me. I knew. Immediately I knew. This wasn't sugar. This was insurance. This was his plan. Get me arrested. Get me out of the way. Take everything we had. Which wasn't much, but it was all I had left. The world narrowed down to that bag in my hands and the sound of my own heartbeat drowning out everything else. People were moving around me, announcements overhead, the smell of airport coffee and recycled air. But all I could see was that bag, and all I could think was, he tried to destroy me. He looked me in the eyes this morning, kissed my forehead, wished me a safe trip, and sent me off with poison in my luggage. What kind of person does that? What kind of love had I been living in all these years? I walked straight to the ticket counter. My legs didn't feel like they belonged to me. The woman behind the counter asked if everything was okay, and I said yes, because what else do you say when your life is ending in an airport terminal? I switched flights. Different airline, different destination. I came back to Memphis. I took a cab to a friend's house, someone from church who I knew wouldn't ask too many questions right away, and I never went home. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've learned that my husband had already started the paperwork, already told his lawyer that I was imagining things, getting paranoid, needed help. He'd positioned himself as the concerned spouse, the man trying to save his wife from her own deteriorating mind. If I'd been arrested with that bag in my suitcase, if I'd tried to tell anyone he'd planted it, who would have believed me? The confused woman? The one everyone knew was losing it? I had nothing. Our apartment was in his name. My part-time job at the church paid almost nothing. I had maybe $300 in my checking account. I had nowhere to go and no way to prove what he'd done. I thought I'd escaped him by switching flights. I didn't realize I'd just stepped off a cliff. The shelter where I've been staying smells like industrial cleaner and defeat. That's the only way I can describe it. Defeat has a smell. It's the smell of people who've run out of options, who've reached the end of every road and found nothing waiting except a narrow bed and rules about when you can come and go and what you can keep with you. There are 42 women in this shelter. I've counted. 42 stories. 42 reasons why home became more dangerous than the street. Some are young, barely out of their teens, with babies on their hips and fear in their eyes. Others are my age or older, women who thought they'd built lives only to watch them crumble. We don't talk much. There's an unspoken understanding that our stories are too heavy to share over breakfast in a crowded cafeteria. But we see each other. We recognize each other. We know. I sleep with my suitcase under my bed, not because there's anything valuable in it, because it's the only thing I have that's mine. Everything else got left behind. Our apartment, my clothes, the photographs on the walls, the picture in the refrigerator where I always kept sweet tea because it reminded me of my grandmother, the framed picture of Jesus in the hallway that my uncle gave me when I was 12 years old. I left it all behind because going back meant risking my life, because going back meant giving him another chance to finish what he'd started. My Uncle James raised me. I need you to understand that first. My father walked out when I was 7 years old, just disappeared one day like we meant nothing to him. And 3 days later, my uncle showed up at our door with a bag of groceries and a promise that I'd never go hungry. He wasn't warm. He wasn't the kind of man who hugged easily or said I love you out loud, but he showed up. Every single time, he showed up. We were distant in my teenage years. I was angry at everything and everyone, and he was quiet and steady in a way that felt boring to me then. But before the end, those last 6 months when the cancer was eating him alive, we reconnected. I'd sit by his hospital bed and we'd talk about nothing and everything, about my father, about choices, about how love doesn't always look the way you think it should. He died almost a decade ago, though it feels like yesterday. Sometimes I still reach for the phone to call him before I remember he's not there anymore. I kept his reading glasses. Still keep them, even now. They're in my suitcase, wrapped in a scarf. On my nightstand in the apartment I can't go back to, they sat exactly where he left them the last time he visited, like he'd just stepped into the next room and would be back any second. He never married, never had kids of his own. Worked at the post office for 40 years, lived in the same small house on the south side of Memphis, drove the same Ford truck until it died and he had to buy another one just like it. When he passed, there was a small funeral. Maybe 30 people. His co-workers, some neighbors. Me. My mother was already sick by then, sitting in a wheelchair in the front row, not really understanding where she was. Everyone said he left nothing. No will, no bank accounts worth mentioning. Just that little house. And after he died, it sat there boarded up because no one knew what to do with it and no one had the money to deal with it. The city sent letters about property taxes and eventually stopped sending them. The grass grew wild. The windows got broken by kids throwing rocks. It became one of those houses that neighborhoods forget about, that just sits there like a gap in someone's smile. I thought that was the end of his story. A good man who worked hard and died quietly and left nothing behind except the memory of showing up when no one else would. I was wrong. The neighborhood near the church where everyone knows everyone started whispering about me after I left. I know because one of the church ladies called to tell me, thinking she was being helpful, thinking I'd want to know. They were saying I'd had a breakdown, that my husband was beside himself with worry, that I'd always been a little fragile, hadn't I? A little too emotional, a little too much. That's what he'd been doing, planting seeds, making sure that when I disappeared, everyone would understand why. Everyone would feel sorry for him. I stopped answering my phone, stopped checking my email. I couldn't bear to know what else people were saying. I couldn't bear to defend myself to people who'd already decided I was crazy. The days blend together in the shelter. Wake up at 6 for breakfast. Out of the building by 8. Can't come back until 4 in the afternoon. So I walk. Memphis in winter, when the cold keeps you inside and the windows fog up from the warmth. Except I don't have inside anymore. I walk past my old apartment building, past the church, past places that used to be mine and aren't anymore. I'm invisible now. That's what happens when you lose everything. People look right through you. The women in my cobalt blue church dress with matching hat who used to hug me after service now cross the street when they see me coming. Not because they're cruel, because they don't know what to say, because poverty makes people uncomfortable. Sometimes I sit in the public library until it closes just to be warm, just to be somewhere that smells like books instead of industrial cleaner and defeat. I read the newspaper. Look at the job listings, even though I know no one's going to hire a 50-year-old woman with no permanent address and a story that sounds like a lie. Food comes from the shelter kitchen or from church pantries or sometimes not at all. I've learned that hunger stops hurting after the first few days. It just becomes this hollow thing you carry around, this empty space where something used to be. I pray more now than I have in years. Not the comfortable prayers I used to say before bed, the ones that were more like wishful thinking than conversation. Real prayers, desperate prayers, the kind you say when you have nothing left to bargain with except your own breath. The framed picture of Jesus in the hallway back at my old apartment used to be something I walked past without really seeing. Now I wish I had it. Now I'd stare at it and beg for answers. My uncle believed in God. Not in a loud way. He didn't preach or quote scripture, but he had faith. I remember him saying once that faith wasn't about knowing everything would be okay. It was about trusting that there was a reason even when you couldn't see it. I'm trying to trust. I'm trying to believe there's a reason I'm walking through Memphis in clothes that don't fit anymore, sleeping in a shelter, eating when I can, invisible to everyone who used to know my name. But most days, I just feel abandoned. My mother died 5 years after my uncle. Different disease, same ending. By the time she went, she didn't know who I was anymore. I'd sit by her bed and she'd call me by her sister's name, ask me when the bus was coming, tell me stories about people who died decades ago like they'd just left the room. After the funeral, I couldn't face her belongings. Couldn't face the boxes of photographs and papers and things that used to matter. My husband kept saying we should clean it out, get rid of everything, but I kept putting it off, kept finding excuses. Some part of me knew that once I went through those boxes, she'd really be gone. It wasn't until last month, until everything fell apart, until I had nowhere to go and nothing left to lose, that I finally went through them. I was staying with that friend from church, the one who gave me a couch for a few nights before she gently explained she couldn't have me there long term. She had kids, a husband, a life that didn't have room for a woman everyone was calling crazy. I understood. I didn't blame her. But I needed to find something, anything that might help me. Some document, some proof of who I used to be. My mother's things were still in my friend's garage where I'd stored them years ago. 3 boxes, not much for a whole life, But that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Everything you are fitting into 3 cardboard boxes that sit in someone's garage gathering dust. I went through them alone. Old clothes that smelled like mothballs and memory, costume jewelry, church programs, photographs of people I didn't recognize. Her Bible, the one she carried to service every Sunday until she couldn't remember what Sundays were for. I almost didn't open the Bible. It felt too personal, too much like trespassing. But something made me pick it up, made me flip through the pages. And there, tucked between Psalms and Proverbs, I found it. A prayer card from my uncle's funeral. The kind they give out at viewings, with his photograph on the front and a verse on the back. I'd forgotten these existed. I'd forgotten standing in that funeral home, taking a stack of them, thinking I'd keep them to remember him by, and then losing them in the chaos of grief and time. But this one had survived. And on the back, in my mother's shaky handwriting, barely legible, someone had written numbers, just numbers, no explanation, no context, just 1733-8. I stared at those numbers for a long time. They didn't mean anything to me. Not at first. I thought maybe it was a Bible verse she was trying to remember. Maybe it was a date. Maybe it was nothing at all, just the confused scribblings of a woman whose mind was already leaving her. Then I remembered. My uncle's house. The one that sat boarded up and forgotten on the south side of Memphis. The bedroom closet. The top shelf. The metal lockbox he kept up there. The one I'd seen once when I was helping him look for something years ago. He'd brushed it off when I asked about it. Said it was just old papers. Said it wasn't important. But my mother had written down a combination on a prayer card from his funeral and kept it in her Bible like it was sacred. I knew I had to go. Had to break into that house and find that lockbox and see what was inside. Had to know if this was something or nothing. Had to know if my uncle, who'd been dead almost a decade, had left something behind that might save me now. The house looked worse than I remembered. Boarded up windows. Graffiti on the walls. The yard completely overgrown, weeds as tall as my waist. The neighbors had given up on it. The city had given up on it. It was just another abandoned property in a neighborhood full of them. Standing there in the dark, staring at what used to be my uncle's home, I felt a wave of grief so strong it nearly knocked me down. This house used to have flower boxes in the windows. Used to have a welcome mat that said, "Bless this home." Used to smell like coffee in the morning and whatever he was cooking for dinner. He wasn't much of a cook, but he tried, always tried. Now it was just a shell, a corpse of a building, forgotten by everyone except me. I went at night. I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of prying off the plywood on the back door with a crowbar I borrowed from my friend's garage, my hands bleeding, my breath coming in gasps, because I was terrified someone would see me and call the police. I'm not proud of breaking into a house that legally probably belonged to the city by now, or maybe to no one at all. But I was desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. Inside, everything was exactly as he'd left it. Furniture covered in dust, his coffee cup still on the kitchen counter, his jacket still hanging by the door, like he'd just stepped out and would be back any minute. Like time had stopped the day he died and never started again. I found the lockbox exactly where I remembered it, top shelf of his bedroom closet, behind old shoeboxes and winter coats, metal, heavy, covered in almost a decade of dust, and locked with a combination lock. I had to stand on a chair to reach it, the same wooden chair he used to sit in at his kitchen table. The chair creaked under my weight, protesting years of disuse. When I pulled the box down, dust rained everywhere, making me cough, making my eyes water, or maybe that was tears. I couldn't tell anymore. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the dial. 1733-8. I tried it once. Nothing. Tried again, slower this time, making sure I got each number exactly right. What if my mother had written it down wrong? What if I was remembering it wrong? What if this was just another dead end in a life full of them? The lock clicked open. The sound was small, but it echoed in that empty room like a gunshot, like a door opening, like salvation arriving right on time. Inside, papers, old papers, yellowed and brittle, and on top a deed, a property deed, for the house I was standing in, paid in full, never transferred, still in his name, and underneath the deed, a note, handwritten, in his careful, precise handwriting that I'd know anywhere. For my girl, when she needs it most. That's all it said, 6 words. But those 6 words meant he knew. Somehow, he knew. Knew I'd need saving. Knew I'd find this. Knew that after he was gone, after my mother was gone, after everyone who was supposed to protect me was gone, I'd still need protecting. I sat on the floor of that dusty bedroom and sobbed. Not quiet crying. Not polite crying. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't know it existed. The kind that empties you out and fills you up at the same time. He'd saved me. From beyond the grave, almost a decade after his death, he'd saved me. I spent that night in his house, slept on the floor wrapped in his old coat, felt safer there, in that abandoned house, than I had anywhere in weeks, because I wasn't alone, because he was still here somehow, because love doesn't die, it just changes form. The next morning, I went to the bank. Actually, I went to 3 banks before I found the right one. The first 2 had no record of him. The third one, the one near his old job at the post office, that's where everything changed. That's where I am now, sitting across from a woman who keeps asking if I'm sure I'm the right person, who keeps looking at my driver's license and then at the computer screen, and then at me like she's trying to make the pieces fit. The manager explains it carefully, slowly, like he's worried I won't understand. The house is mine, has been mine since my uncle died. The deed was never transferred into my name because he wanted it protected. Wanted to make sure that if anything happened, if I needed it, it would be there, waiting. And the value. The neighborhood has changed, developed. Property values have gone up. The house that seemed worthless 10 years ago is worth something now, is worth a lot now. $560,000. I stop breathing. Just stop. The manager is still talking, but I can't hear him anymore. Can't hear anything except the sound of my own heartbeat and the memory of my uncle's voice saying, "You'll never go hungry." He gave me more than a house. He gave me a future. He gave me freedom. He gave me the ability to escape and rebuild and start over. He gave me proof that I was loved, that I mattered, that I was worth protecting even after he was gone. The banker woman who doubted me is crying now too. She apologizes, says she had to be sure, says she sees so many scams, so many people trying to claim things that aren't theirs. But this is mine. This is really, truly mine. They help me. The banker, the manager, even the security guard who overhears what's happening and comes over to shake my hand. They help me start the paperwork, help me understand what happens next, help me figure out how to turn a decade-old deed into actual money, actual security, actual salvation. I walk out of that bank still wearing my cobalt blue church dress with the matching hat, but I'm not the same woman who walked in. I'm not the woman who smelled like shelters and defeat. I'm not the woman everyone pitied or avoided or called crazy. I'm my uncle's girl. And I always will be. I need to tell you about the letter now. The real letter. The one that was in the lockbox under the deed, folded up small, that I couldn't read in that dusty house because I was crying too hard. The one I'm reading now, sitting in my car in the bank parking lot, the engine running for heat because I still don't have anywhere to go. But at least now I have hope. It's dated 6 months before he died, before he got so sick he couldn't hold a pen anymore. The handwriting is still strong, still his, still the same careful letters he used to write on birthday cards. Girl, it starts. Not dear or to whom it may concern. Just girl. That's what he always called me. Just girl. I don't know when you're reading this. Don't know how long it'll be. Could be next year. Could be 50 years from now. But I know you're reading it because you need it. Because something happened that made you need saving. And I can't be there to do it myself. So I'm doing it now. Before. Just in case. This house is yours. Always has been, really. I bought it thinking I'd live here forever, but forever turned out to be shorter than I planned. When I got sick, I knew I needed to do something. Needed to make sure that if things got bad for you, if you ever needed a way out, you'd have one. Your daddy left. I know that hurt you. I know you're probably still carrying that around, thinking it meant something about you. It didn't. It meant something about him, about his weakness, about his inability to love something more than he loved himself. But I want you to know that I stayed. I stayed because I chose to. Not because I had to. Not because it was easy. Because I loved you. Because you were mine even if not by blood. Because family isn't about biology. It's about showing up. I'm showing up now. One last time. This house, this deed, this little bit of security I can leave you. It's me showing up. Don't feel guilty about taking it. Don't feel like you're not worth it. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't deserve this. You do. You deserve more than I can give you, but this is what I have and it's yours. Live your life, girl. Live it big. Live it loud. Live it free. Don't let fear make you small. Don't let other people's opinions make you doubt yourself. Don't let anybody convince you that you're less than you are. I loved you when you were 7 years old, and your daddy left, and you looked at me like I was the only solid thing in the world. I love you now, wherever and whenever now is. And I'll love you from wherever I end up next. You'll never go hungry, remember that. You'll never be alone. Even when it feels like everyone is gone, even when it feels like you have nothing, you have this. You have proof that you were loved, that you are loved, that love doesn't end just because breath does. Be good to yourself. That's all I ask. Be as good to yourself as I wish I could have been to you. Your Uncle James. I read it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Each time I cry harder. Not sad crying anymore. Something bigger than that. Something that doesn't have a name. Grief and gratitude mixed together until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. He knew me, really knew me. Knew I'd doubt myself, knew I'd feel guilty. Knew I'd need permission to accept love even from beyond the grave. So he gave me that permission. He gave me his blessing. He gave me his voice one last time, telling me to live, to be free, to trust that I'm worth saving. I pressed the letter against my chest. Hold it there, like I'm trying to absorb the words through my skin directly into my heart. The reading glasses in my suitcase, the ones I've carried with me through everything, they're not just a memento anymore. They're proof. Proof that he was real. Proof that his love was real. Proof that I'm not making this up, not imagining it, not crazy despite what everyone says. I talk to him out loud, right there in my car in the bank parking lot. I don't care if anyone sees me. I don't care if they think I've lost my mind. Maybe I have. Or maybe I've found it. Thank you, I say. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying. Thank you for loving me enough to protect me even now. Even from wherever you are. Thank you for making me believe that I'm worth saving. Because I forgot. I forgot that anyone ever thought I was worth anything at all. But you remembered. You remembered for me. And now I can remember too. The winter sun is setting, making everything gold and orange and beautiful. The windows are fogging up from my breath and the warmth of the heater. And for the first time in 3 weeks, for the first time since I found that bag of white powder in my suitcase and my whole life fell apart, I feel something other than fear. I feel loved. I feel protected. I feel like maybe, just maybe, I'm going to be okay. My husband finds out 3 days later. I don't know how. Maybe someone from the bank talks. Maybe someone from the church who knows someone who knows someone. Memphis is a small city in a lot of ways. News travels. He starts calling, texting, shows up at the shelter looking for me, but I'm already gone. Already staying in a hotel, the first real bed I've slept in since I left. The first shower that's truly mine. The first meal I've eaten that I chose instead of accepted. His messages start out concerned. Baby, where are you? I've been so worried. Please come home. We can work this out. Like I'm the one who needs to apologize. Like I'm the one who did something wrong. When I don't respond, the messages change. Get angry. Get desperate. You can't just leave. You can't just disappear. We're married. We have a life together. You're being selfish. You're being crazy. This isn't you. Then he hears about the money. Someone tells him, or he figures it out, or he sees something he shouldn't have seen. And that's when everything shifts. I heard about your uncle's house. That's wonderful news, baby. See, everything works out. We can use that money to get a fresh start. Together. Come home and we'll talk about what to do with it. We'll make plans together. We, together, ours. Like he has any claim to what my uncle left me. Like he has any right to protection he spent 23 years destroying. I don't respond to any of it. I block his number, block his email, block him on every platform I can think of. I get a lawyer, a woman someone at the bank recommended, someone who handles domestic cases, someone who takes one look at me and understands without me having to explain everything. She's my ally, my advocate, the person who stands between me and him and says, no more. She helps me file for divorce, helps me get a restraining order, helps me protect what's mine from someone who spent 23 years trying to take everything I had. When he shows up at her office demanding to see me, demanding to know what I think I'm doing, demanding his share of our money, she shuts him down. Calmly, firmly, legally. The house was never marital property, was never ours, was mine before we were married even if I didn't know it. The inheritance is separate, protected. His, I'm not there when it happens. But she tells me about it later, tells me he cried, actually cried, begged her to convince me to come back, said he loved me, said he'd never meant to hurt me, said the thing with the suitcase was a misunderstanding. He didn't think you'd be stupid enough to check it, she tells me. That's what he said. That you weren't supposed to find it. He thought you'd get arrested, and it would be too late before anyone believed you. I feel nothing when she says this. That's what surprises me most. I thought I'd be angry, thought I'd rage or cry or feel something big and destructive. But there's nothing. Just a kind of cold clarity. An understanding of exactly who he is and exactly how little he ever loved me. He starts showing up at the church, making scenes, telling everyone I've stolen from him, telling everyone I've lost my mind, telling everyone the same story he's been building for months, except now he adds a new chapter. Now I'm the villain. Now I'm the crazy woman who abandoned her loving husband and stole money that wasn't hers. Some people believe him. Some people always believe the man. Some people can't imagine that the person they thought they knew could do something so calculated, so cruel. They look at me like I'm the problem, like I'm the one who broke our marriage by having the audacity to not get arrested like he planned. But other people, people who've been paying attention, people who heard what he was saying about me before I left, they start putting pieces together. They start asking questions. They start wondering if maybe the crazy one was never me. One of the church ladies, Sister Margaret, she corners me in the grocery store. I'm trying to avoid everyone, trying to just buy food and leave, but she blocks the aisle with her cart and looks at me hard. Sister Margaret is 73 years old. I know because she mentions it constantly, always with a laugh, always followed by, and still here, thank you, Jesus. She's been a widow for 15 years. Raised 6 children on her own after her husband died, worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. She understands survival in a way that people who've never had to fight for it never will. Your uncle was a good man, she says. No preamble, no pleasantries. And good men don't raise foolish women. I don't know what happened between you and your husband, but I know you're not crazy. I've been watching, I've been listening, and I don't like what I've been hearing." Her eyes are sharp, clear, missing nothing. She's seen things in her 73 years. She's survived things, and she recognizes survival in me. She takes my hand, squeezes it. Her hands are rough, scarred from years of work, but her grip is strong, certain. "Don't let them make you small," she says. "Don't let them make you doubt what you know. Your uncle left you that house for a reason. Honor him by living big enough to deserve it." I cry in the grocery store, right there by the canned vegetables. This woman I barely know, who I thought had judged me and found me wanting, who I thought believed every lie my husband told. She sees me. She believes me. She stands with me. That's when I realize I don't need everyone to believe me. I just need a few people, the right people, the ones who matter. My husband comes back one more time, shows up at the hotel where I'm staying, somehow finds out which room, pounds on the door at 2 a.m. I call the police. They come. They escort him away. He's crying, begging, saying he's sorry, saying he'll do better, saying he loves me. I watch through the peephole as they take him down the hallway, and I feel nothing. Not satisfaction, not revenge, nothing. He's just a man I used to know, a man who tried to destroy me, a man who failed. The divorce takes 4 months. He fights it, tries to claim the house, the money, anything he can get his hands on. But my lawyer is better than his. My case is stronger than his. The truth, it turns out, matters. When it's final, when the papers are signed and I'm legally free, I don't celebrate. I just breathe. Just sit in my new apartment, the one I bought with my uncle's money, and breathe. The windows don't fog up anymore because I can afford heat. The refrigerator has a pitcher of sweet tea because I can afford groceries. The framed picture of Jesus hangs in the hallway exactly where it used to. I went back to the old apartment while my husband was at work, with my lawyer and a police escort, and I took back everything that was mine. His reading glasses are on my nightstand again. Back where they belong. Back where they've always belonged. I'm not who I was. That woman is gone. The woman who let someone gaslight her for 23 years. The woman who believed she was crazy because someone told her she was. The woman who had nothing and was nothing and deserved nothing. I'm my uncle's girl now. The girl he raised to be strong. The girl he protected even after death. The girl who survived. I sell the house 6 months after the divorce is final. It's the right decision. That house was never really mine. It was his. It was his way of taking care of me. The money from the sale, that's mine. That's $560,000 of freedom and future and second chances. I could do anything with this money, move anywhere, be anyone, start over completely. But I know what I want to do. I know how I want to honor him, how I want to make sure his love doesn't just save me but multiplies, spreads, continues. I start a foundation, small at first. Just me and a lawyer helping me set it up properly. It's for women like me, women escaping abuse, women who've lost everything, women who need saving and have nowhere to turn. We help with legal fees, security deposits, first month's rent, the kind of money that's not huge but makes the difference between trapped and free, between going back and moving forward, between surviving and living. I name it after my grandmother, the woman my uncle loved most, the woman he said taught him how to be good. I adopt a section of highway that bears her name, and every time I drive past that sign, I remember that love is generational, that it passes down, that what he gave me, I can give to others. The work is hard. Every woman who calls has a story that breaks my heart. Every story reminds me of my own, but I help them, one by one, woman by woman. I help them escape, help them rebuild, help them believe they're worth saving. That's my rebirth. That's my legacy. Not just surviving, not just being saved, but turning that salvation into something bigger than myself, into something that would make my uncle proud. I start writing it all down, everything that happened, everything I learned, not for myself, for other women, for the ones who are still trapped, for the ones who think they're crazy, for the ones who need to know they're not alone. I teach classes at the church, women only. We meet on Wednesday evenings in the basement, and I tell them the truth. The truth about psychological abuse, about gaslighting, about men who try to destroy you and make you think you're destroying yourself. I teach them about legal rights, about protective orders, about how to document abuse, about how to leave safely, about resources they don't know exist. I teach them that love shouldn't hurt, that marriage shouldn't be a trap, that being alone is better than being with someone who wants you erased. Every class, there's at least one woman who cries, who says, "That's me, that's my story. I thought I was the only one." And I tell her she's not, she's never been. Statistics reveal that 1 in 3 women experiences intimate partner violence. Research reveals that elderly women with disabilities suffer double the emotional abuse. This isn't rare. This is an epidemic. But she's not alone anymore. I'm here. We're here. A room full of women who've survived, who've escaped, who've rebuilt, who are still rebuilding. I share my uncle's story. How he protected me from beyond the grave. How love doesn't die just because breath does. How sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we're married to or the ones we expect. Sometimes they're the ones who showed up when we were 7 and never stopped showing up. I tell them to look for their protectors, to honor them, to let themselves be saved, to believe they're worth saving. Sister Margaret comes to every class, brings her friends, brings her daughters, becomes my assistant, my advocate, my friend. She tells me once that she always knew something was wrong with my marriage, always felt it, but didn't know how to say it without proof, without permission. We need to give each other permission, I tell her. Permission to ask hard questions, permission to say what we see, permission to believe women when they say they're not okay, even if they're smiling. She nods, takes my hand. Your uncle would be proud, she says, and I believe her. I finally believe her. My life now is different in every way. I moved to the city where my grandchildren live, close enough to watch them grow. Close enough to be the kind of presence in their lives that my uncle was in mine, not perfect, not always available. But there, always there. I have a small house, 2 bedrooms, a yard, a porch where I sit in the mornings with sweet tea and watch the sun come up. My cobalt blue church dress hangs in the closet. I wear it sometimes, not because I have to, because I want to, because it reminds me of the day everything changed, the day I walked into a bank with nothing and walked out with everything. His reading glasses still sit on my nightstand. I don't need them to read, but I need them to remember, to know that protection doesn't end with death, that love survives, that the people who truly love us find ways to save us even when they're gone. I visit his grave every few months, bring flowers, sit on the grass next to the headstone, tell him about the foundation, about the women we've helped, about my grandchildren, about my life. Thank you, I say every time. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying. Thank you for remembering me when I forgot myself. The wind moves through the trees, birds sing, the sun warms my face, and I feel him. Not in a supernatural way, not in a way I could prove to anyone, but in the way you feel love, in the way you feel protected, in the way you know, absolutely know, that you're not alone. I'm writing this down now because I want other women to know what I know. That salvation can come from unexpected places, that inheritance isn't always about money, that sometimes the people who save us are the ones who died years ago but loved us enough to plan ahead. I want women to know their legal rights, to know that in most states, inheritance received during marriage remains separate property, to know that abusers will try to claim what isn't theirs, to know that documentation matters, to know that they should keep records, take pictures, save texts, to know that when someone tries to make you doubt your reality, write it down. Write down what happened. Write down what was said. Write down the truth before they convince you the truth isn't real. I want women to know that studies reveal that 17% of adults had 4 or more traumatic experiences in childhood, That research reveals that elderly women with disabilities suffer double the emotional abuse of other women. That this is common, that this is real, that if you're experiencing it, you're not imagining it. You're not crazy, you're being abused, and I want them to know that escape is possible, that rebuilding is possible, that you can be 50 years old with nothing and still have everything ahead of you, that it's never too late to save yourself, that it's never too late to honor the people who loved you, that it's never too late to become who you were always meant to be. My uncle has been gone almost a decade now, but he saved my life 3 weeks ago, saved it by planning ahead, by thinking about me, by loving me enough to protect me even after death. Some people never stop protecting you. They just change form. They become letters in lockboxes. They become houses no one knew about. They become money that appears when you need it most. They become the voice in your head saying, "You're worth saving, you're worth fighting for, you're worth everything." That's what I want you to take from my story. Whether you're listening in Memphis or Miami or Maine, whether you're in a good marriage or a bad one or no marriage at all, whether you're safe or scared or somewhere in between, you're worth saving, you're worth protecting. And somewhere, someone loves you enough to make sure you know it. Maybe they're still alive. Maybe they're gone. Maybe they're planning ahead right now, making sure that if you need them, they'll be there. Don't ignore the signs. Don't dismiss your instincts. Don't let anyone convince you that you're crazy when you know, deep in your bones, that something is wrong. And if you're the one doing the planning, if you're the one who loves someone enough to want to protect them even after you're gone, do it. Make the plan. Write the letter. Leave the proof. Show them they were loved. Show them they were worth it. Show them that your love doesn't end just because your breath does. Because that's what my uncle did for me. That's what saved me. Not the money. The money was just proof. What saved me was knowing I was loved. Knowing someone thought I was worth protecting. Knowing I wasn't alone even when I was so alone I wanted to disappear. I drive past that highway sign with my grandmother's name on it every time I visit my grandchildren. Every time I see it, I remember. Remember where I came from. Remember who saved me. Remember that love is the only thing that lasts. The only thing that matters. The only thing that can save us when everything else fails. If you're listening from somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere full of love, be grateful. Hold on to it. Protect it. Never take it for granted. And if you're listening from somewhere cold, somewhere scary, somewhere that feels like it might swallow you whole, know this. You can escape. You can survive. You can rebuild. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not worthless. You're somebody's girl. Somebody's daughter. Somebody's reason for planning ahead. Somebody's inheritance. Somebody's saved life waiting to happen. 3 weeks ago, I had nothing but a suitcase and a prayer card with numbers on the back. Today, I have a foundation that helps women escape. I have grandchildren who will never wonder if they're loved. I have a life that honors the man who raised me. And I have proof, absolute proof, that love never dies. It just waits. It just plans. It just hides in lockboxes and deed transfers and letters written 6 months before the end. It just saves you when you need it most. So tell me, where are you listening from? What's your story? What inheritance are you carrying that you don't even know about yet? What love is waiting to save you? I want to hear from you. I want to know I'm not alone in this, that my story matters to someone other than me. Like this, if it resonated. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. Comment if you've ever felt saved by someone who wasn't there anymore. Comment if you've ever been that person for someone else. Comment if you're still waiting to be saved. Because you will be. I promise you. You will be. Love doesn't end. It transforms. It protects. It saves, even after death. Especially after death. My uncle proved it, and now I'm proving it for someone else. That's the legacy. That's the inheritance. That's the point of all of it. Some people never stop protecting you. They just change how they do it. And that's the most beautiful thing I've ever learned.